So I've seen Dan Bongino come out of his federal hole and start attacking people like Dave Smith. He hasn't attacked me directly. Of course, I'm a nobody, but I'm just a American disabled construction worker. But I see him all black-pilled people, and we got to get rid of them. And look, you know what black-pilled means? Black-pilled is basically you've woke up to reality. Reality is set in. You realize there's a global organization. And where did it start? Look, the Jews lived in ghettos for years. They consolidated their money. They started giving out loans. They started their own banking system. And the Rothschilds started the main Jewish bank in Frankfurt, Germany in the late 1700s. And what the Rothschilds realized is when wars came along, governments need things. They have a lot of gold. They have a lot of precious metals stored up. So they started loaning money to governments. Then, because transferring money was so dangerous back then, they set up different banks. England, London, Germany was where they started, and they spread out across Europe. And they started loaning. They continued their private loans, but then they started loaning to governments. And then in 1913, under Woodrow Wilson, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, they gained control over our monetary system here in America. And they started loaning money to our government for wars, for other things, and then it was guaranteed in taxes, so they would get their money back. Now, these people have consolidated, the 12 families under the Rothschilds have consolidated global financial power of almost every Western country. I don't know what they're at now, 167 countries I think they control the monetary system of. So, it's like, my parents always told me when I was a kid, hey, follow the money. Where does corruption go? Follow the money. Everything leads to the dollar. Everything is money. So when you see somebody go, oh, there's a black pill, like Dan Bongino coming out and attacking people, Dan Bongino is a fucking deep state idiot. Let's make that perfectly clear. The guy's got maybe a 90 to 100 point IQ. He's not very intelligent. He's been a cop all his life. He goes to the FBI. He helps bury the fucking Epstein files. He's covering up pedophile rings, redacting everything. He's probably been locked in a basement for 10 months, fucking redacting pedophile files. What do you say? Oh, what I seen shook me to the core. And then he comes out and he complains, oh, everyone's black-pilled. And that brings me to Venezuela. Venezuela doesn't have a Rothschild bank. In order to get global control, you have to control every fucking monetary system. The president doesn't run the United States of America. The Federal Reserve Bank runs the United States of America. They control all our money. We don't have our own monetary system. It belongs to them. And to solidify that, in 1933, they had the Gold Confiscation Act. So then they took everybody, all the people's gold and silver. There's no money left in the Federal Reserve. In my opinion, that shit was used to fund the Bolshevik Revolution in Europe, where they slaughtered all them Christians, tens of millions of Christians. So when people say, "Oh, you're black-pilled," what's even being black-pilled? What, the realization that there are globalists and they control every country's monetary system, and we have to bow to them because they hold all the money? That's all it is. It's quite simple. The Rothschilds and the 12 families under the Rothschilds, they sit on every, we have one chair member, the 13th chair that the president appoints, who's always a Jew, of course, And I have nothing against Jews in general. I have a problem with fucking Zionists, though, because they feel the need to gobble up everything of every country. They come in, they take over the monetary system, they take over the media, they fucking ban free speech, they control Hollywood and everything else that you see. It's ridiculous. So when people are black-pilled, it's just the realization that the banking families have moved through every country and controlled everything. And what countries are we always at war with? It's not really oil. It's who has the monetary control. They gain monetary control, they bring in their capitalist corporations, they suck out the resources, they leave the country in debt, they collapse the economy, and they move on like a plague of fucking locusts. That is the deep state. That is the problem. Countries need national banking systems for the people, by the people, and until it's not fucking Israel that's controlling. Of course, Israel has a lot to do with it, and AIPAC and everything else. But who's funding this? Who's funding all this? The fucking global banking cabal, the Zionist Jewish banking cabal, has leverage over every country because they own their fucking monetary system. No country can be free without controlling their own monetary system, and all our gold's gone anyway, so, they took our gold and they gave us worthless paper. And everybody that opposed it's dead. That's one of the things a lot of people say JFK was killed because of the Vietnam War, and JFK was killed because he went against AIPAC. No, I think JFK was killed because he wanted to bring back the silver certificate and get rid of the fucking Rothschilds' global monetary control on the United States, and he was whacked out for it. There's nothing more powerful than money. If you're going to take away the Federal Reserve of the United States from the Jewish global banking cabal, we're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars over decades. Gone. Taken away from them. That's a lot of fucking money to take away from the Rothschilds and the 12 families. You think a little AIPAC money had something to do with it, or the Vietnam War, or maybe calling out Israel for their stealing our nuclear material and building nukes behind our back. Now it's all about the banking system. And once you realize that these people control every monetary system in the world, and that our countries are controlled by them, and they are the deep state for every country, you become black-pilled because things start to look hopeless, because you realize that the only way to take back control of the country is to take back control of the monetary system. And the governments aren't going to let that happen because they're controlled by the people that control the monetary system. So when I see Dan Bongino come out, he's a fucking idiot, with his 90-point IQ going, yeah, black-pilled people are fucking idiots. Well, you're just ignoring the facts at that point. Why? What were you threatened by them? I'm sure they kill anybody they want. I mean, they fucking kill presidents. They murder people around the world. They fund, Epstein was funded by one of the guys that's involved with the Federal Reserve. So, when you look at this, you have to realize that these people have all the money from every country. They control every country. Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela. There's not that many countries left that the Jewish banking cabal doesn't control. And once they control the rest of the major countries, they will have full global control over every monetary system. And, bravo, you win. You control the world. So that's what this is about. This is what being black-pilled is about. It's about waking up to the fact that the financial system and their system of credit and debt, not only on the people, but on governments, is the fucking problem. That's the complete problem. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. All you have to do is look at the banking history of each country, and you're there. So, Dan Bongino, you can go fuck yourself. You can come after me too. I'm a little bigger than Dave. You ain't gonna beat me up. You certainly ain't gonna beat me in a fucking debate either. You're a clown. You're a washed up boomer. It's time to fucking move on and drop your podcast, son. You're an idiot.